So today we are going to learn about the concepts of research. And the reason as to why we are going to look at concepts of research is because concepts of research, they are very important. There are some things that you're going to find or to come across in every unit, in every topic that you are going to handle. And it is always good to know these concepts before we start fully on understanding some important things about research or understanding this course very well. So therefore, these concepts are very important for you because some terms are going to be repeated every now and then. And it is not good that every now and then a term is repeated, you go to the dictionary to find out what it means. But it is always good that we understand the terms onset before we go deep into what research methods and methodology is all about. So without wasting much time, we are going to look at research language. And it is important for you as a researcher to acquire a sound understanding of these basic terms, just like I've said, used in research. And this acquisition of language is very important for the better understanding of research process, as it will be outlined in the subsequent chapters. I think this one I've said about them. And one of the terms, today we are learning about terms. There are 33 terms. I may not be able to go through all of them, but if time allows, I'll go through all of them. So we have term number one is what we call a population. So what is a population? A population is the entire group of individuals. I can give an example of a population. For example, if you say Zitech University population, so everybody in that particular university belongs to a population. So it is the entire group of the individual or events that have a common observable characteristics. For example, this group that I'm teaching is my population. So if I have to do a research, then I'll have to do what? I'll have to do what we call sampling. Of course, we are going to look at what sampling is all about. So a population is the entire group that you're going to study. So if you're going to study to do a research at Safaricom Kenya Limited, the entire everybody that works in Safaricom Kenya Limited is your population. But now you're going to scale down. Which category are you going to conduct research on? And this population must have observable characteristics. These observable characteristics must be similar or must be common. Then we go to term number two. Which we call a sample. There is a lot of details that have been given about what a population is. That one you can read as you go through, but I've just summarized. For example, we are saying all standard 8 pupils. All standard 8 pupils in Meru district. That one is a population. But now if you decide now to go to Meru district, say for example, a school known as Nkobo Primary School, now that is your sample. But the entire standard 8 pupil in Meru district becomes your population because they have the same observable characteristics. All of them are in standard 8. All the problems that they are going through in terms of reading, in terms of payment of school fees, they are going through all of them. Then we go to what we call a sample. And when you talk about a sample is simply a subset. It is a subset, or it's a subset or a subgroup that is selected from a population. For example, maybe your population is Safaricom Kenya Limited, but now you are interested in the management. You are interested in the management of Safaricom Kenya Limited. So your population is Safaricom Kenya Limited, and then everybody that works in Safaricom Kenya Limited is your population. And now maybe you want to get the sample. And now you have now decided, I'm going to work on the management. Now the management, say for example, maybe the management can be divided into several categories: top management, level, what we call the middle middle management and the lower management. Maybe that is management. And now maybe you want to select a sample from the management. Excuse. So a sample is a subgroup. It's a subgroup of the accessed population that is representative of the whole population. Let me give another example. Suppose it is in this class, and I want to know why people are not coming to class. You see, I will not, now this class becomes my population, and I cannot go asking everybody, why are people not coming to my class? So I can select 3 people at random and ask them, and whatever information they give me becomes the result of becomes the answer that I'm seeking for. Sorry. So therefore, a sample is a carefully selected subgroup of the accessible population that is representative of the whole population with the relevant characteristics and connoted as N. Remember, when you talk about population, population is connoted as capital N. So whenever you see capital N, it is the population. Whenever you see small n, it is the sample. Therefore, we look at sampling. Now, sampling is a technique that is used in selecting a sample from a population. And we have various characteristics, or we have various categories of sampling. First of all, we have 2 basic categories of sampling. We either have what we call probability sampling technique, or we can have non-probability sampling technique. But when you have a probability sampling technique or a non-probability sampling technique, you're going to realize that in probability sampling techniques, we have various subcategories of probability sampling technique, and also in non-probability sampling technique. And therefore, when you're talking about sampling, it can be random. A random sampling technique is the one that you select your items that should be included in your research at random. We also have stratified. Stratified is when you divide your sample into clusters. No, into what we call stratas. For example, if you are doing research on, if you want to select samples from a population of Zitech University, you can divide your population into stratas. You can divide them into maybe year 1, semester 1, that is 1 strata, year 1, semester 2, the next strata, and so on and so forth. Then from there, you use simple random sampling technique to select a sample from that particular, from those particular stratas. Then we have cluster, systematic, snowball, and convenience. All these, the one that we are talking about, random, stratified, cluster, systematic, snowball, and convenience sampling, all these we will learn them as in another chapter. Then we also have sampling frame. A sampling frame is a list. It's simply a list or a directory or an index of cases from which a sample is selected. For example, a sampling frame can be a national census list. If you go to the national census, the one that was done some few years back, you will realize that it has a lot of information concerning some individual. Like, for example, if you go to the voters register, we just concluded our election. If you go to the voters register, you will find names of people and their what we call their ID numbers, their age, and so on and so forth. Now that one becomes the sampling frame. We can also have directories, telephone directories. We can have a list of professionals. Or maybe, for example, a list of income taxpayers. If you go to Kenya Revenue Authority, you'll find that they have a list of people who pay taxes and who declare their what we call their income tax. Therefore, from there, you can do what? You can select individual randomly and maybe you can interview them to get to get information as far as your research is concerned. Then we also have what we call probability sampling technique. And when you talk about probability sampling technique, it is a technique that is used in selecting samples from the population. And when you talk about probability sampling technique, it means that all the items in a population have an equal chance of being selected. I know you did probability in high school. Some of you got it, and some of you it went haywire. But when you talk about probability, it simply means the likelihood. For example, when you toss a coin, the likelihood that it will be the head is a half. The likelihood that it will be a tail, it's a half. Therefore, when you talk about probability sampling, is that everybody has been given, or all the items in a population have an equal chance of being selected. And when you talk about these probability sampling techniques, there are several. For example, we have random, simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is a probability sampling technique. A very good example of simple random sampling, those people who watch what we call Total 649, whereby the balls have numbers and they are shuffled by a machine. And then the ball that gets out of the reshuffling ball, it becomes the number. Now that is simple random sampling technique. Or when somebody blindfolds you and puts balls of maybe number 1 to number 20, and then anakufunga macho, anakuambia chagua mpira, and then you pick one, you pick another, you pick another, and then the numbers that you have picked is the winner. Now that one is probability sampling techniques. Every item has an equal chance of being selected. Now, when you go to non-probability sampling technique, it is the opposite of probability sampling technique. Non-probability, the number do not have an equal chance of being selected. A very good example of non-probability sampling technique is when you talk about convenience or snowball sampling method. When you talk about snowball, like for example, snowballing sampling method, this is whereby, for example, you are interviewing doctors. Maybe you want to know about, maybe you are conducting a research on COVID-19 variants. And then you realize that Dr. A from Kenyatta National Hospital has told you this on what we call COVID-19 variants. Then you decide now, you tell the doctor to refer you to a doctor that he knows. Then you go, maybe he tells you another doctor is in KU, Kenyatta Referral Hospital. You go to Kenyatta Referral Hospital. You meet the doctor, you ask him about the same. Then the doctor at Kenyatta Referral Hospital you tell him to refer you to another doctor. He tells you another doctor is in maybe Jomo Kenyatta University Hospital. You go there. Now that one is called snowballing, because one, the researcher is referring you to another person who has got the same characteristic like his, the ones that you are looking for. Now those ones are non-probability sampling technique. We also have what we call purposive sampling technique. We have convenience. Convenience is just like it sounds, it's a convenient sampling. It's the one that is convenient to you. For example, when you say that you ask a question on radio, who watch maybe particular program, you're only going to look for a person who is convenient to you and something like that. Then we also have parameters. Parameter is a measurable characteristics that can assume different values in a population. So parameters, they are measurable characteristics that can assume different values in a population. Remember, when you talk about parameters, we are talking about different values in a population. They assume different values in a population. And they refer to what we call population characteristics. For example, we can talk about the age. We can talk about sex. We can talk about gender. Those are parameters. Parameters, they are those measurable characteristics that can assume different values in a population. For example, when you talk about age, people can have different age. You can have people who have got who are 21 years old, 30 years old, 45 years old, 60 years old, 75, and so on and so forth. So parameters are measurable characteristics that can assume different values in a population. Kindly get this so that you don't get confused with another term. And maybe we will go to that term, which is known as a variable. Acha to look at statistics, let's go to a variable. When you look at a variable, it says this is a measurable characteristics that assume different values among subjects in a sample. What is the difference? What is the difference? The difference is when you talk about a variable, it is a measurable characteristic that can assume different values in the subject in a sample. While when you talk about a parameter, they are measurable characteristics that can assume different values in a population. Simple as that. Variable is sample, and then parameters is population. That is the difference. So then we go to statistics. And when you talk about statistics, is the science of organizing, when you organize data, when you describe data, when you analyze those quantitative data. So the term statistics refers to indices which are derived from data through statistical procedures. Any question up to that point? Kuna mtu ako na swali? Kuna mtu hanisikii vizuri? So then we go to what we call an independent variable. That is term number 10. And it is a variable, or this is the variable that is manipulated by the researcher. It's a variable that you manipulate. To manipulate simply means what? To manipulate simply means you can, what do you call it? To manipulate simply means that you can, let me look for the synonym. To manipulate means that you can work on it, or you can put it in various, I mean, you can put it in various situations. You can subject it to various situations. So independent variable is a variable that can be manipulated by the researcher. It is also referred to as experimental or treatment variable. It is a variable that you can experiment on. It's a variable that it is independent. You can work on, you can experiment on, you can manipulate it. It is influenced by the outcome of the study. For example, we are told, we can say a student's success in school is influenced by their study habits, time management, class attendance, and involvement. A student's success. Remember, success is what? Success is independent. But we also have what we call habits. We also have time management. We also have class attendance. So success can be influenced by the habits. So success is independent. Is dependent. For example, when you look at the dependent variable, again, you're told this is the outcome variable. Whatever you get is the dependent variable is the outcome of your research. For example, you are told in our example above about a student success in school, the dependent variable will be student success. That is the dependent variable. It would be student success, which can be influenced by what? Study habits, time management, class attendance, and involvement. So in other words, those are what we call independent variable and dependent variable. Then we also have what we call control variable. A control variable A control variable is a variable that the researcher suspects is likely to influence the research results. That there are those variables that you suspect they are going to influence your results, or they are going to influence research results. So there are several types of variables that may influence results of the study without the researcher being aware of them. Those ones are called control variables. We also have extraneous variable. I want you to read on extraneous variable and intervening variable. And maybe we can look at theories. What is a theory? When you talk about a theory, it's an explanation of how one or more variables are related to another variable or to other variables. So a theory provides the basis of establishing a hypothesis and is derived from existing literature or knowledge. For example, when you talk about theories on HIV transmission. In other words, when you talk about a theory is simply a tentative explanation of the world around you. And there are so many theories that have been derived or that have been written on almost all the disciplines. For example, when you talk about communication, we have communication theories, we have media theories, we have what we call motivation theories, we have management theories, we have psychological theories or psychology theories, and so on and so forth. So every discipline has got theories. And these theories, they have been written down by scholars, and they explain why things are the way they are. For example, in media, maybe you might be asking yourself, why do students watch, why do children watch TV and they start becoming violent? There is a theory that explains, or there are theories that explains why kids or even human beings, when they watch TV, they tend to change their behavior to conform with those that they have watched on TV. Now, those are their theories explaining all those behaviors. Or maybe, for example, we have, in other words, we have theories, media theories, and we have what we call media theories, communication theories, theories from all academic angles or academic disciplines. Then we also have hypotheses. When you talk about a hypothesis, these are what we call anticipated explanation, or we call them assumption. We usually call them assumption. Is an educated guess. Some books will say that a hypothesis is an educated guess. For example, I might have an hypothesis and say that my students don't come to school because they have not cleared the field. You see, I've not done the research. I've not gone to the field. I've not gone to the class to ask why they don't come to class. But I am assuming, I'm guessing that they are not coming to class because they have not cleared their fees. Now that is a hypothesis of which, when you do your research, it will either prove your hypothesis or your assumption to be either true or false. Sijui kama tumeelewa hiyo. So hypothesis is an educated guess, or it is an anticipated explanation or opinion regarding the result of the study. So there are three types of hypothesis. We have null hypothesis, we have alternate hypothesis, and we also have what we call alternate hypothesis. We have null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis. I think those are the hypothesis, and directional hypothesis. Then we go to this null hypothesis is a default state of nature. So when you talk about null hypothesis, it is a default state of nature. For example, it assumes that there is no relationship or differences variable, and that any occurrence of a relationship happens by chance. For example, we assume someone is healthy until that person is proven sick. Even when you feel that you have a headache, we will assume that you are healthy until we take you to the hospital and the doctor says that you are suffering from, maybe, for example, malaria or something of the sort. Then that way we can say now you are suffering. But the null hypothesis is that we assume that someone is healthy until he or she is proven to be sick. Now that is a null hypothesis. We also have alternate hypothesis. And this is the research hypothesis, which represents the researcher anticipated explanation. Like, for example, when you say there is a relationship between failing and attending class, that is an alternative hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. But when you say there is no relationship between attending class and failing, then that one becomes a null hypothesis. Kuna swali? Is there any question? Before we proceed, remember you have to understand these terms because we are going to use these terms throughout this course. We'll be talking about type 1 error, type 2 error, type 1 and type 2. And you'll be asking yourself, huu mwalimu anamaanisha nini? What does type 1 error mean? So let's go to the other one, which is type 1 error. And this is known as false positive error. It's called false positive error or false alarm. And how does it occur? Type 1 error. It occurs when a relationship or a difference does not exist, but your analysis shows that it does. It occurs when relationship or a difference does not exist, but when you do your analysis, you find that it does. For example, a very good example is a misleading diagnosis for malaria when the test shows otherwise. A good example is a misleading diagnosis for malaria. Umepewa dawa za malaria, or when you go to the hospital, they find that you have malaria, while the test shows otherwise. The test shows that you don't have malaria. But when you look at you, we see that you have malaria, but the test shows that you don't have malaria. Number 2, we have what we call type 2 error. It's also known as false negative error. And it occurs when the relationship does exist, or a relationship exists, but your analysis fails to show it. For example, it usually occurs because of a small sample size. You find that, for example, there is a relationship between failing and attending class. But when you do your research, you find that your research shows otherwise. There is no relationship, but there is. This one occurs when you are using a sample size that is very small. For example, you are supposed to use, maybe in a sample of 200 people, you are supposed to use 10%, which is 20. So your sample must have 20 people. Then you use a sample of 5 people. You see now, 5 people from 200 people, it is too small. It will show you that a relationship that it exists, but your analysis will show you that there is no relationship between failing and class attendance. Then we have type 1 and type 2. When you combine type 1 and type 2, these are errors associated with hypothesis testing. So there are 2 other types of errors that are associated with sampling, and they are referred to as sampling error and sampling bias. So what is a sampling error? A sampling error is a discrepancy between the characteristics of a population and the characteristics of a sample. Kama tunaelewa. Let me repeat, when you talk about sampling error, it is a discrepancy between the characteristics of a population and the characteristic of a sample. For example, your population is Zitech University, and we are looking at year 2, semester 1. So when you look at the population, they have got the same characteristics. But now, when you select the samples, they have got different characteristics from the population. That is sampling error. Then we also have sampling bias. This is the discrepancy that results because of the decision or choices of a researcher. For example, you go to, say, for example, this